Good morning. It is Tuesday, March the 28th, 2023. I'm Pearson Bowen. This is the CBC Morning Report. Meteorological officials are concerned that the smoke from brush fires could impact the visibility of pilots approaching the airport. Recently, there have been several fires in Barbados, with some of them in the Christchurch area. CBC News spoke to the Civil Aviation Authority about the fires and the possible dangers that they may cause. John Paris, who is Unit Chief of Air Traffic Services, says it depends on wind direction.
You would find that smoke in the area of the approach path of the runway can obscure the vision of pilots. So fortunately for Barbados, on our approach path, we have a built-up area of houses, and luckily for us, within the past few years, we have not been severely impacted by smoke. Normally, you would find that there can be smoke that may take place just to the north of the approach path, and in some cases, that smoke blows in the direct path of aircraft coming in. But fortunately, we have not had any delays reference the smoke because it may just obscure the vision of the pilots for a few moments.
Mr. Paris says if a fire was in the area where Barbadians usually park and watch the planes come in, that is, at the top of Wilcox Hill, that such a scenario would have a number of factors tied to it.
The severity plays a role. So, for instance, if we have a fire that is that occurs directly in the path of approaching aircraft, it will have severe consequences, not only from the standpoint of visibility, but the heat that is generated from that fire would impact the aircraft performance. So based on the severity, we may have a number of options. One of the options, if it's on the approach path, normally you would find that aircraft land from west to east. So that's why you would see all those persons there by the perimeter gate. But what we can do as air traffic controllers is we can use the other end of the runway to land. That would be eastern end of the runway if it is not as severe. What the pilots would do is probably approach from the northeastern and the eastern end of the island and land. However, based on the severity, if it's a severe fire, then the runway may have to be closed.
He adds that while the Met Office tells them of the status of smoke in the atmosphere, the height of the control tower also gives them a good handle on things.
We work in conjunction with the Met Office. There are times when the Met Office may provide that information to air traffic control, reference any smoke in the area. But as you are aware, Wendy, we have the control tower, which is pretty high up in the sky. And so the controllers can look out by visual means and can also determine impact of smoke or fire to aircraft coming into Barbados. And so we too can give the Met Office that information for them to put in their Met reports. So there's this working relationship that we have with the Met Office, but we also can look out and see for ourselves where the smoke is and how it impacts operations at the airport. And what normally the controllers would do, we would give that essential information to pilots, letting them know where the smoke is or where the fire is, so that they are better prepared when there are approaching items to land.
CBC News also got the opinion of a pilot of 20 years experience. Neil Cave says smoke does not impact them as much, but it is a possibility.
The fires don't really affect us. They would produce some lower visibilities on the approach as we're coming into land and so on, depending on the location of the fire, but it doesn't affect us for the simple reason that, you know, we operate in instrument conditions and we can do instrument approaches in any case that would allow us to land in quite low visibilities. So we don't have that much of an issue with the wildfires and the smoke produced per se. There was an incident maybe about 3 weeks ago where they had one that was actually very close to the final approach path, maybe about a mile and a half, 2 miles away from the airport, and they actually had to, I think that created some disruptions because it was so close to the approach to landing. So the fire service obviously dealt with that, and then things normalized. So that's really about it. Not much of a hazard.
Coming up on the CBC Morning Report, the United States in shock over the 13th mass school shooting for the year.
This Easter, CBC is having an Easter bonnet decorating competition where anybody, old or young, can participate. All you need is a bonnet or a hat for those who don't know, some glitter, some Easter eggs, some flowers, maybe even some chocolate. Take a photo of your finished product and send to Mornin Barbados at cbc.pb or WhatsApp 467-5465 from March the 27th to March the 31st. All entries will be shown on Mornin Barbados and posted to their social media page. The photo with the most likes can win $250. Oh yeah, and if you win, you can be featured on their TV morning talk show Mornin Barbados. Sponsored by Super Style Shoe Shop, keeping your steps in style. Skate Life Barbados, Skate Life, Great Life, and Mornin Barbados.
Investigations are continuing into the slaying of 3 children and 3 adults after a woman opened fire at a primary school in Nashville, Tennessee. It is the latest instance of deadly gun violence in the United States. 13 mass shootings to school this year.
The attack took place at a private Christian school in Nashville, Tennessee. Police say they shot and killed the female attacker. A motive for the shooting isn't yet known. This is the 13th mass shooting this year where people have died or been injured at a school. Rosalind Jordan has more from Washington, D.C.
U.S. President Joe Biden is once again calling on Congress to pass comprehensive gun legislation. This after Monday's fatal shooting at a Christian school in Nashville, Tennessee. 3 children and 3 staff members were killed in the attack on Monday morning. Nashville police say a 28-year-old woman carrying a handgun and 2 semi-automatic weapons burst into the school shortly after 10 a.m. and about 15 to 20 minutes later, they say that 2 of their officers killed her. The woman hasn't been identified. Her motive has not been identified. But it is worth pointing out that since 1966, only 4 shooters involved in mass shootings have been women. The past year, 303 school shootings took place in the United States. So far this year, 89. Again, family and friends are trying to figure out why something could happen in what is supposed to be a safe place for children.
Germany's transport workers for air, bus and rail are staging one of the largest walkouts in decades as Europe's biggest economy reels from inflation, which reached 9.3% in February. Germany, which was heavily dependent on Russia for gas before the war in the Ukraine, has been particularly hard hit by higher prices as it scrambled for new energy sources.
Monday morning at Munich airport and not a passenger in sight. Here, as in other major German airports, all flights are cancelled because 2 unions representing millions of public sector workers are striking over pay and conditions. And some people are stranded.
Well, if I had known it, I wouldn't have come here and tried. I'm a bit shocked, actually. But was it? I didn't heard of it. So, yeah, I have to find out what to do right now.
The action by the Verdi and EGV unions has hit the entire German transport network. In large swathes of the country, fleets of buses have been stuck in their depots. The rail network has also been paralysed, with all long-distance journeys cancelled and many regional links also abandoned for the day.
On most Mondays in March, this station would be a hive of activity, with trains going to dozens of different destinations, both regionally, across the country and internationally. But this Monday, virtually no trains are running. And where normally more than 300,000 people would come and go through this station, on this Monday, barely a fraction of that number are actually here.
The unions are clear. They want above-inflation pay rises and better working conditions.
Our goal for the strike is not to impact passengers and school children, but to affect management boards of all the companies. They are responsible because they are the ones paying their staff low wages.
The companies have rejected that view and the pay demand behind it.
Millions of passengers who depend on buses and trains are suffering because of this excessive and overblown strike. Not everyone can work from their home office. Thousands of companies in the economy that usually receive or ship their goods by rail are also suffering.
The German central bank has appealed for reason, calling on unions to make sensible pay rise demands and for companies to accept sensible profit margins. One minister involved in negotiations with the unions says an offer on the table is fair. But so far, the unions don't agree and won't rule out more strike action.
Well, coming up in 17 minutes, when you join me for Morning Barbados here, we'll continue to look into the Faculty of Social Sciences at the University of the West Indies. And today we take a look at the programs in economic as we visit the Department of Economics. A certified life coach joins us this morning to share with us how we can reach sustainable happiness and success. And also this morning we'll meet a man who seeks to bridge the gap between misunderstanding between lots of people of different ethnic origins. He'll join us and them and a whole lot more straight ahead at 6:30 on Morning Barbados. The CBC Morning Report continues in just a moment.
While you go about your business, we go about our business, and that is gathering the news. Stay up to date at CBC News Barbados on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter. Get news update on radio throughout the day. And join us for the CBC News Night at 7 every night. CBC News team is on the job and bringing you the news.
There is a saying, you can find a Bajan anywhere. Are you a Bajan living abroad? Or do you know of one who has migrated to another country? Well, we at Mornin Barbados would love to have you or them on our Bajan Afar segment. Share your amazing stories, experiences, and how you have adapted to a new culture. Send us an email to morninbarbados@cbc.bb. And together we will travel the world.
Enjoy movies, soaps, drama, comedy, inspiration, education, music, and more. You get it all when you get MCTV, because MCTV gives you more.
Some ask, what makes Barbados so special? We at Mornin Barbados say it's you, our exceptional.
The complaints of junior doctors at the Queen Elizabeth Hospital have been heard. They met yesterday with the management of the QEH in what has been termed as a productive meeting. Minister of State in the Ministry of Health with responsibility for the QEH, Dr. Sonia Brown, explains though the situation of long shifts is not ideal, it's commonplace worldwide owing to staffing shortages. Dr. Brown says her ministry sympathizes with junior doctors and explains action is being taken to ease their burden.
The burden came to the hospital, NCDs increased, people were delayed on cancer treatment, so they came in. The medical department is overwhelmed. But what I can tell you is after several meetings, we have asked for and were granted posts to increase the complement of the staffing. We've asked for cover in the A&E for over a certain period so that nobody will be overworked there. And that also adds to how quickly the patient is put on the ward.
Brown notes complaints by junior doctors were not made to the Barbados Association of Medical Practitioners. However, the ministry continued to make improvements on their behalf. The minister confirms more junior doctors will be joining the complement at the hospital in the near future to alleviate the pressures experienced by staff and members of the public.
We've been working to address some of the issues, and I know that we have people overseas that are studying, that are due to come back over the next few months, for instance. And we're looking into a lot in terms of training overseas so that we can build the complement. And that applies to nurses too. We have several training programs for nurses that some of them are actually in programs, some of them were released recently. Well, you know about the bringing in of the foreign nurses because we are short. So things are being put in place.
Some residents of the housing units in the constituency of St. Michael's Southeast are to be relocated. Minister of Housing, Lands and Maintenance, Dwight Sutherland, made the announcement during a Barbados Labour Party branch meeting in that constituency. He further said the government intends and continues its efforts to upgrade the electrical and sewage systems for hundreds of units. To date, electrical upgrades have been completed in 1,872 units out of 2,687 at a cost of $5 million, while 340 sewage systems have been repaired. Mr. Sutherland says this work was done and government is moving ahead with plans to transfer ownership to tenants under its 20-year free transfer of units initiative.
We have some 3,075 occupants that are qualified under the 20-year free transfer unit program by this government, and this government will carry on that legacy of transferring. And some of the major issues hindering the transfer is the structural integrity of the unit. Some of the units built in 1949 don't have ring beams. So we're assessing these units, and you'll find, because you're the oldest estate, we don't want to come and do an electrical upgrade on a unit that we don't think is satisfactory. It don't make sense.
For those units deemed unfit, Mr. Sutherland says the tenants will be relocated to Lower Burney, where government has acquired 40 acres of land. Later today, the minister is expected to move a resolution in Parliament to vest half of that land in the National Housing Corporation and the other half in Hope Inc. Over 350 homes will be constructed on the plot, half of which will be used to address the challenges in the Pine and nearby areas.
We don't feel comfortable transferring those units to you because it won't be fair to you transferring these units and the ring beams and things, and we can't get them fixed, so we can move you out. Some, not all, but we are doing repairs to most of them, and the DPM and the social survey will determine how many persons move and how many persons will get access to right to own, so that you go into the right to own.
Government will be moving to rectify issues at the St. Matthias Magistrates Court complex. Attorney General Dale Marshall, after touring the complex with Chief Justice Sir Patterson Cheltenham, Deputy Permanent Secretary Anthony Wiltshire, Acting Registrar Sharon Dean, a team from the Office of the Attorney General and Industrial Hygienist Ian Weeks, assured 100% energy in rectifying the issues.
Which houses aspects of District A, but also the District C Court. We've received some complaints from members of the staff that there are some pressing environmental challenges in this facility that have the potential of simply preventing them from working at all, if not from doing their best. So we've come to see it for ourselves. I am satisfied that there are a number of things that can be resolved in the very, very short term. There are some things that will take a little bit longer, but I'm confident that we can resolve the issues that have been raised to the satisfaction of the staff. But of course, this is a public facility, so any issue that affects the staff here will also have the potential to affect the public.
Mr. Marshall said that while the court was still relatively new, there are environmental challenges across his ministry.
We are having challenges at many of our installations, our police stations, or even our Supreme Court, which is a building that isn't 20 years old yet. Even there we've been having challenges in the nature of mold and so on. There are some solutions that are, I'm informed, are easily resolved. But you know, there are some simple things that present challenges. One body like the room cold, next body don't want it so cold, so somebody opens the window, which then creates problems which cause mold. So we are going to have to ask for the cooperation of the staff. In many of the rooms, I have noticed that while the AC was on, that louvers are also open.
Chief Justice Sir Patterson Cheltenham stressed the need to be in a healthy and productive environment.
I am very concerned because many of these complaints feed their way back up to the office of the Chief Justice. And I'm always concerned about health and productivity. You can get no productivity unless people are in a healthy environment. And that's why, coming out of our usual meeting that the Attorney General and I have on a consistent basis, we decided this morning whatever else we may have on our agenda would have to be deferred. We are going to come on location, and as you correctly pointed out, this is the first of 2 visits we will be making this morning. Staff must see us, we must get their account. I don't want anything that is filtered or massaged.
In El Salvador by law enforcement is receiving mixed reviews. While the citizens are happy about the safety element, there are claims that some innocents are being trapped in the dragnet.
If there was an image for El Salvador across the last year, this would be it. About 65,000 people, nearly 2% of the adult population, thrown in prison. The country now has the highest incarceration rate in the world. 27th of March marks the anniversary of the state of emergency which started it all. Police arresting people en masse, trying to break the grip of the country's 2 all-powerful gangs, the MS-13 and Barrio 18. They've been terrorising communities across the country for years. The strategy's been unsophisticated, the flooding of gang-controlled neighbourhoods with police and army, and the arrests. But most in El Salvador seem to agree that it's worked, liberating communities like La Campanera, formerly a notorious gang stronghold. This is Ana Bilma, finally heading to a house in the neighbourhood that she bought 15 years ago but could never live in.
I have always prayed to God, Lord, I want a house where I can live in peace, where no one will bother me, and the Lord has fulfilled it.
With homicides down and gang members seemingly fleeing for the hills, around 90% of the population approve of President Nayib Bukele, the architect of the strategy, and he's doubled down on it, building a new maximum security prison to fill with more suspects.
All these terrorist gang members who are being transferred to the terrorism confinement centre, currently 4,000 of them, are never going to return to the communities, to the boroughs, neighbourhoods and cities of our beloved El Salvador.
But at what cost has it come? Due process has been repeatedly violated, say civil organisations. The majority of those in prison have yet to even face trial. Those arrested don't have the right to a lawyer or even to be told why they were detained. And many have been sent to prison after mass hearings, often without evidence presented.
The government isn't using investigation or intelligence to arrest people. It's enough just that someone accuses someone else, an anonymous phone call, or that a policeman doesn't like the appearance of a young person, and they just capture people and take them away.
The Salvadoran authorities are unperturbed by the criticism. With Congress, they've just extended the emergency measures for another month.
We need to continue fighting the criminal structures. We need to give better service to the Salvadoran families, to guarantee their lives and property.
After years under the yoke of the gangs, many of the population will support that. But not those waiting outside of Salvadoran prisons, hoping their loved ones will be released.
In sports, the Barbados Carifta Games athletics team has increased by 1. Malia Edwards has been added to the squad after her performance in the girls' under-20 100 metres hurdles in the Shane Brathwaite zone at the Dasani Water Powerade BSAC meet last week. Edwards was clocked at 14.13 seconds, which is under the Carifta standard of 14.3 seconds. The 50th Carifta Games will be over the Easter weekend in the Bahamas. As the Windies play in today's decisive T20 International against host South Africa, we're hearing of the big moves for Alzari Joseph and Akil Hossein as they achieved career best ratings in the latest ICC Men's One-Day International Rankings. Joseph moved 8 points to 11th spot and Hossein moved up 1 place to 20th. On the batting side of things, new West Indies ODI captain Shea Hope moved up to 2 places to 12th position. Those rankings came after the 1-all draw with South Africa in the recently concluded series. Anne-Marie Burke reports.
In a 50-over World Cup year, you can only imagine that the spotlight shines even more on the team's performance and their captain. So when Shea Hope was handed the reins ahead of the just concluded series with South Africa, this was his time to show he could handle the business. But did he? From a personal standpoint, Hope's elevation to the captaincy saw him move down the order to number 4, which might not be too bad of a move, as he has scored almost 60% of his ODI runs in the opening position and averages 60.72 there. But apart from the difficulties of batting up front, captaining the side and keeping a wicket, Hope has been deemed too slow to start an innings. His strike rate of 68.15 in the first 10 overs since August 2019 is the slowest of the 6 batters the West Indies have used in the opening position. With his move against the Proteas, he proved he's still solid no matter the position. 128 not out in the first ODI, a bit more of a struggle in the second with 16 runs, but overall not too bad of a performance. Let's look at the Windies batting as a whole. Kyle Mayers has shown major improvement. A strike rate of 82.85 is markedly better, and is why he's batting at the top alongside Brandon King.
All right, let's take a look at the forecast conditions now. These were recorded earlier at the Met Office of the Grant Lee Adams International Airport. What's in the forecast for us today? At 6 o'clock this morning, 24.5 degrees Celsius, cloudy conditions with a slight light showers. The winds are coming from the east-southeast, picked back up to 35 kilometers an hour. Expect today a low tide at 24 minutes to 4 this afternoon, a high tide at 7 minutes to 8 this morning, with the nets at 24 minutes to 11 tonight. If you're going to the seas today, expect moderate to in open water with swells ranging from 1.5 to 2.5 meters and increasing. A small craft and high surf advisory is in effect for above normal sea swells, and sea bathers, you're asked to go to those beaches where lifeguards are there and stationed. The forecast for Barbados today, cloudy at times with the occasional brief scattered light to moderate shower. And for Barbados tonight, it will be partly cloudy with the occasional intermittent scattered light shower. A look now at some forecast conditions for some international cities. Well, that's it for today's edition of the CBC Morning Report. I'm Pearson Bowen. Morning Barbados starts now.
Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Barbados, get up. Good morning. Good morning, Barbados. Good morning. Good morning to you. Good morning. Morning, morning, morning. Good morning to you. Good morning. Morning, Barbados. Good morning. Good morning to you. Good morning. Morning, Barbados. Good morning. Wake up, wake up, wake up. Morning to you.
Tuesday, the 20th of March 2023. Good morning to you indeed. Welcome today to Morning Barbados. I'm Pearson Bowen, welcoming all of you everywhere. Thank you as always for joining us, waking up and keeping us company, and also for interacting on our streams on YouTube and Facebook and our website. Thank you all. Now, coming up today, what do you do when the orchestra which you lead surprises you? Oh, you will definitely see that surprise before the morning is done, so stick around to see that big surprise coming up. They're all warm and fuzzy and cuddly and cute and all of those lovely things, the pets in our homes, and the children absolutely love them. But what are some of the dangers? Our pediatrician, Dr. Gillian Birchwood, will join us And we look very closely at some of those possible dangers that could exist in the house with pets. In our conversations on CARICOM this morning, we will get to meet the new Cuban ambassador to Barbados, and our Barbados ambassador to CARICOM, His Excellency David Commichon, will introduce her to us. So we get to hear what is that furthering of the relationship between Barbados and Cuba. This morning we'll meet a man who seeks to bridge the gap of misunderstanding between people that come from very different origins. How do you do that? He'll share with us in just a little while. A certified life coach will also join us today to give some insight into how we can reach that sustainable happiness and success. Is it possible? And how do we do so minute by minute, day by day, moment by moment indeed? How can we reach happiness and success? Do you think it's possible, or do you think it's impossible? Perhaps the possible we'll share with you this morning, so look out for that as well. But all week long we're continuing to delve into the Faculty of Social Sciences, and so today we turn now to the Department of Economics, and joining us is the head of that department, Dr. Mahalia Jackman. Good morning to you, Dr. Jackman. All right, there you are. Thank you so much for joining us today, and it's your week. So you get today to tell us all about what happens in the Department of Economics. When we think economics, we think of supply and demand, but it's much more than that, isn't it?
Yeah, you know what it is. It's actually one of the most interesting things, actually, Pearson, is that when people hear econ, they don't actually go straight to supply and demand. They actually go to things like inflation, unemployment, government policy, or even economic growth. And you can understand how people will have that perception. Think about when you see an economist on TV, or when you hear them on the radio, or even when you read them making comments or read about their comments in the newspaper. They largely talk about unemployment, government policy, economic growth, and inflation. So I guess it makes sense that that's where people's mind go. But when you do economics, of course, you do study these things, but this is just a small part of it. So I'm just going to say macroeconomics, which is like, you know, inflation, economic growth, that's just one component of it. If you Google the term econ or economics, you will see very different definitions. But I'm going to give you one of my favorite definitions. Economics is a study of how decisions or choices are made in the face of scarce resources. So let me put that into layman terms really quickly for you. We all have choices to make, right? I would personally like to go out and buy everything that I want to buy, but I face something called a budget constraint. I'm pretty sure any government will probably like to engage in various types of policies to ensure the well-being of their citizens, but most governments face fiscal constraints, though some more than others. So in econ, you're going to take all of those constraints and those scarce resources into consideration, and you are going to try to make what we call the optimal decision. And once you start to think about economics like that, you know, you have scarce resources and you're trying to make the best choice, then you see that economics is actually applicable to almost anything. So you have so many branches of economics. You have the popular macroeconomics, you have the microeconomics that you talked about, which talks about supply and demand. But from that, you have things like transport economics, medical economics, business economics, economics of technology, economics of religion. Yes, I said religion. The economics of family, the economics of infidelity. Yes, again, I said infidelity. I can go on. But so it's a wide-ranging subject. It's not just, and I like to say economics is just not a subject. It's really a way of thinking.
You said it perfectly. That's exactly what I was going to say as well. It's a way of thinking. And so as one comes into the Department of Economics, that's what one is trained to do, to exercise one's thought patterns, to be able to see from whence it came and where it's going, and to be able to navigate one's movement from one point to the next. But there's so many other areas of economics that we hear about a lot today, about the orange economy, the green economy, the blue economy, and all of those kinds of things. Are those also areas of study at the university in the Department of Economics?
So within econ, we're going to train you to be able to tackle almost anything, but we do have persons and we do have courses like in our environmental economics course. You can learn about, you know, the green economy, you can learn about the blue economy. So we try to cater to all these different strands. If you don't mind, I'd like to talk about a little bit about the programs in the department.
Sure.
So you have our undergraduate programs, you have the Bachelor of Science degrees. So you have the traditional, you know, the BSc in economics. You have the joint majors for things like economics and finance, economics and accounts, economic and management marketing, economics and political science. I could go on. But we also house the BSc in banking and finance. And then we have our postgrad programs. So we have our top masters, we have the MSc in financial and business economics. You have the MSc in banking and finance, which, by the way, is hybrid. And that means you can follow us online or you could join us face to face. And then we also have something that a lot of people don't know about, Pearson, the MSc in logistics and supply chain management, which, like the banking and finance program, is also hybrid. And when you talk about logistics, people are kind of like, wait, well, that's in econ? Yes, remember what I said, econ is the study of how you make, it's a way of thinking, yeah? So it makes sense. So logistics, for anyone who doesn't know, it's going to focus on the movement and the storage of items in the supply chain. And then supply chain management is more comprehensive. That covers all the coordination between partners, like sourcing, manufacturing, transporting, selling, you name it. And what the pandemic did was it really brought to light the unseen vulnerabilities in logistics and supply chains. We saw firsthand how disruptions in the supply chain led to shortages of key goods. We saw the price hikes. I don't know about y'all, but every time I go in the supermarket at home, I hurt. And so we have this renewed energy in studying logistics and supply chain management to understand the practical and the analytical aspects of logistics problems. We also look at the fundamentals of management science and supply chain management. It's a really fast-growing field with lots of opportunities. But yes, as you said, we have a wide-ranging set of courses. You name it, we have it.
When you stop to think about it as well, you know, in everything we do, as you've said before, economics plays a part. And so almost in every business with which we engage, economics plays a part. And so there are many opportunities while studying in the Department of Economics at the University of the West Indies for some real gainful employment. There are many opportunities that abound.
Yeah. So here's the thing. Whether you do our traditional econ program, if you do the banking and finance, whether you do logistics and supply chain management, our focus is on developing critical thinking and problem-solving skills to make good decisions. We focus on analytical skills to examine and inform decisions. Now, these skills, as you mentioned, are desired across a range of careers in any area, whether that's the private sector, whether that's the public sector. For instance, I just ran into somebody who actually studied at U with me. We both did our bachelor's together, and he's now employed at Warwick Medical School in the UK. And no, Pearson, he didn't want to do a medical degree.
Yes,
He actually was employed there for his analytical skills, his ability to examine data and inform decisions. That is training that he was first introduced to in the Department of Economics. So there's so much opportunities and so much jobs prospects out there when you study within the department because of where we focus, you know, our skills that we try to make sure our students leave with, which is really something that's in demand from various businesses.
This is brilliant. And so for all of those watching today, whether you are the adult or the child in school waiting to take your next step into your tertiary education, let's talk a little bit now about how one can register to be a part of the Department of Economics.
Well, currently, the university is taking applications for undergrad, postgrad. So if you go to the university's webpage, you just hit, there's a nice big button saying apply now. And you can go in and you can apply to be part of, you know, we have a range of degrees in the Faculty of Social Sciences. Econ is just one of them. So if you are interested in the world around you, whether it be from history to politics, international affairs to consumer behaviors, or even the standard map for economics, then we're the department for you. And if you're interested and you really want to hear more, we have 2 webinars. Econ has 2 webinars scheduled for this evening. The first one is at 5:30 for those interested in undergrad, the undergraduate programs, you know, the bachelor's. And then we have one at 7 for those who are interested in our postgrad programs. And if you need more information, contact the department at 417-4930. I'll repeat that, 417-4930. Or just email us at economics@kphil.ub.edu. Again, economics@kphil.ub.edu. And we'll be happy to talk to you a bit more about econ.
It is truly an exciting area of study indeed, and a place to do it is in the Department of Economics at the University of the West Indies, which is headed by this lady, Dr. Mahalia Jackman indeed. You made it sound so exciting and so interesting, a journey to take, that one wants to really get in there, and whether you're in banking, finance, in logistics, in whatever area of endeavor, it truly is a place where you can expand your thinking. I think it would also be good for leaders in business as well, not just, economists, but as you just said, the training of the mind now helps in so many other areas. Your friend who was studying in the Department of Economics is now doing in the medical field because of the training of the mind. And so that's so important for all of you watching today to get to know more. Tune into the webinar at 5:30 as undergraduates, at 5:30, and at 7 o'clock this evening for postgraduates to know more about the exciting programs in the Department of Economics at the University of the West Indies. And of course, you can go to the website kphil.uwi.edu. You see it all right there, the Faculty of Social Sciences, and within that is the Department of Economics indeed. And so we want to encourage as many of you as possible today to get in there, get out there, and be a part of it to reach that level of education that you so desire and that the world requires of you as well. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, Dr. Jackman, indeed. And it truly was a wonderful experience hearing from you. The excitement in your voice about economics, it really makes it sound like a really exciting endeavor. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
You're very welcome indeed. We're going to take a break right here. We're coming back with more on Morning Barbados in just a moment.
Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
Some ask, what makes Barbados so special? We at Mornin Barbados say it's you, our exceptional youth. You are talented, resilient, and inspirational. You are the epitome of the Barbadian spirit, testing the boundaries of your creativity. If you are an entrepreneur, artist, baker, designer, author, or have done anything you think should be highlighted, email us at morninbarbados@cbc.bb. Let us show the world our exceptional Bajan youth.
Books open your heart, your mind, and your soul. They are educational, entertaining, inspiring, and motivating. Are you an author of a recent book you want to share? Then Mornin Barbados would love to feature your book in our The Next Chapter segment. Send us an email to morninbarbados@cbc.bb. That's morning without the G.
Morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
60 minutes now to go to 7 o'clock. Our next guest is an educator of over 24 years, teaching across many levels indeed. And when you stop to think about it for just a moment, he's also a scientist, but he's a life coach too. And so he joins us this morning as we want to look at how does one reach happiness and success. That we believe he knows well about. Dr. Sigrid Howell, good morning to you. All right, we'll try to unmute you if you can unmute yourself as well. Don't forget, folks, when you're joining us, don't mute. We will mute you from here. We'll take care of it from here. There you are. Good morning.
Yes, good morning. How are you doing? Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can indeed. Okay. Thank you so much for joining us. I am curious myself, how does one reach happiness and success as you have determined?
Well, you know what? I found the formula to happiness and success. When I was younger, I was very pessimistic, and over a period of time, I found myself being the go-to person for people who are happy and for people who want someone to lift them up. And so I found a certain amount of things that has helped me in my life. If you imagine a tablet, when you buy a tablet, let's say it's an iPad or a Samsung, it comes preloaded with apps, and that to me correlates with your birth personality. And then you might say to yourself, well, you know what, I want to download some games, I want to put some movies on there, and I want to put some music on there. And so that to me is what is called the formed personality. And then you get to school age and you go to school and you get more apps downloaded and downloaded and downloaded, and eventually you get overloaded. And so if, let's say you can imagine that you're into music, you might want music that allows you to put beats onto a song. you might want to download programs that allows you to change stuff up with synthesizers and other types of background music. And then you want to have some type of editing software. But what happens is, over a period of time, you get bumped down with a lot of information. And so you need to figure out a way to get what you need so it works in synergy. And so you go and search and find a way to do that. So what I did was, in my life personally, I found ways to make myself happier and allow myself to be happier. And I came across 4 biblical laws that helped me to find happiness. The first law is the law of vibration. It says, whatever you focus on is what you become. So if you intentionally work on focusing on happy things, working on helping others, working on being a better person, eventually that would exude outside of you and it will give you happiness. Law number 2, the law of attraction. You will begin to attract the type of people that resonate with who you are as a person, that has similar values. So if you don't like the people that are currently around you, you have to change who you are from within. Law number 3, cause and effect. You will reap what you sow. So if you don't like what is happening to you, you have to change the seeds that you are sowing. And then the last law is the law of responsibility, which basically says, if you do not like what is happening to you now, and if you don't like what is going on in the world, get up and change it. So those 4 laws are the laws that I've found that are biblical, but they also are very practical to maintaining happiness and success in life.
Life has a way also of throwing what you curveballs, and you're saying if you follow those 4 principles, whatever curveball comes your way, you should stay true and centered to what you believe. You likened it to the analogy that you used at the beginning was the tablet and how it came already formed. It already knows its purpose. And so I want to talk to now a little bit about the value of knowing one's purpose indeed, because oftentimes as you develop and grow as a person, your purpose can change as the tablet will change probably as well.
What happens is this: your purpose never changes. What actually happens is you become more in tune with what your purpose is. See, you're already downloaded with what you need in order to fulfill a successful and happy life. But let's say you have skills and gifts that allow you to be good in many different fields. You might try to pursue each one of those things as opposed to being authentic to yourself. So for example, if you're chasing money instead of helping others, you might still get a certain level of happiness, but you will not get the full level of happiness as if you were doing it based on the true purpose that you were born for. And so one of the things that I do with people is I help them identify their personality. Once you figure out what type of personality you have, their strengths, their weaknesses, and their opportunities for growth, and their blind spots in everyone's personality. So once you figure out what type of personality you have, then you can add that to what are your values. Because a lot of people think that what they value and what their values are the same. See, you might say, hey, I like people to be honest with me, but are you an honest person? In actuality, would you die for honesty? Would you give up money for honesty? Or is it something that goes back and forth? Because your true values never ever waver. And then another thing that you look at is your passion. What is it that you're passionate about? If you can find, let's say money was not an issue, let's say time was not an issue, and let's say you could not fail, what would you do for the rest of your life? What could you wake up and do every day and not be a problem? And if you're doing that every day as your profession, you will find that you get more happiness in life.
You know, it calls for a lot of introspection naturally and growth over time as well, but to be patient enough to be able to achieve it. But honesty is going to be a factor here as well, because oftentimes we define ourselves based upon what people say of us. And so we question within our own spirit whether or not what I'm hearing is true or what I'm feeling is true. How do you get to that point where you are confident enough to know that what I'm feeling is true and what I'm hearing is not necessarily true?
That is a very good question. Like I said before in my first analogy, if you imagine yourself being a tablet, we are downloaded with a certain preset information, and that comes from our genetics. And so your parents, to a certain extent, helps you with your first part of your personality. And then your environment that you grow up in, it kind of gives you that formed personality. So you have the born personality. Babies have personalities. But then as you get somewhere around 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years old, you have what is called a formed personality. And that is based on your environment, based on your culture. So what you have to do is you have to look and see what is going on around you and see how that resonates with you. And you have to say to yourself, is what I'm feeling in line with what I'm experiencing? And so you have to do what is called, you have to seek solitude. And a lot of times people mix up solitude and loneliness. Loneliness is an internal feeling that you get when you are left alone and you don't want to be left alone. But solitude is actually taking that time to reflect inwardly to see if what you want is what you're getting, to see if the steps that you're taking will lead you in the right direction. So like you said, you have to do a lot of internal reflection. And so if you know yourself, then you have to self-reflect in order to know yourself. If you want to know your values, you have to self-analyze. If you want to know your strengths, you have to self-evaluate. And if you want to know your passion, you have to be your authentic self. And so you have to seek regular solitude. And a lot of times people don't like that because then you see the real true you. You see your biases, you see your limitations, and you see all those things that make you weak. But that is not a bad thing, because once you know who you are, then you can start to work on yourself and then surround yourself with what I call high quality people, or HQP. And those high quality people are people who can stretch you to become a better version of yourself. They're people who can look out for your blind spots and for your weaknesses. They're people that you can help to grow. And so as you're giving service to other people, they're also giving service to you. And so you can find a level of happiness by you serving the people around you and those people serving you. And as you all build each other up, you'll become more successful and you become happier. What I often see in society is people are sitting around waiting for the first person to make that move instead of making that first move. And that's why one of the laws that I like to live by is the law of responsibility. You are responsible for the change that you want. Don't expect someone else to do it for you. So even if you're in a relationship and you're not happy, try to bring happiness to the other person, and then in turn that person will bring happiness to you. But if both people are sitting back waiting for the other person to bring happiness, nothing ever happens.
What does happiness look like? Because sometimes the picture you see is not necessarily what other people see too. So is it the feeling within, I'm content? Is it contentment? Is it joy? What is happiness from your definition?
That's a very interesting question. Happiness is one of those external things. Joy is an internal thing. And so I normally use them interchangeably, but to be honest with you, what you need is to have joy. Regardless of what's happening around you, you know that there's something to learn from it, and then you adapt and you move forward. But happiness to me, when combined with joy, looks like I am living my purpose. I'm being true to myself. I'm being authentic. So as long as I know my personality, as long as I know my priorities in life, and as long as my perspective, that's another word that I did not bring out earlier that I like to bring out now. The perspective is how you look at life, your emotional fitness. Are you looking at life in a positive way, or are you looking at life in a negative way? Depending on how your mindset is, if you look at life from a positive mindset, even when bad things happen to you, you learn, you adjust, and you move forward. You can still be happy even though things are happening around you that are not comfortable. And you can stretch and you can grow as you live from day to day. So happiness to me is living my true life, the life that is true to my purpose, regardless of whatever else is happening around me.
Well said. That's exactly where I was going. I'm glad you answered it in the way you did, because coming off from our last segment where we talked about the Department of Economics and how the study of economics is the way we training of the way we think. Within the reaching of our happiness and success, that's also critical. How we think, and how we think sometimes is a consequence of our experiences, or what people say to us as well. So if we can just find our purpose, you're quite right, and we focus on simply that and do that with the whole idea of reciprocity. I give, you give, and we live happily ever after. We live happily ever after, literally. And that's the level of success that we're talking about. But people define success also by the big dollar sign. But is that what you were talking about when we said we can reach success, the dollar sign?
I have a question for you.
Yep.
Suppose I were to give you $10 million today, but you only live for 1 week. Would money matter to you?
No.
Exactly. So money is really not a definition of success. Success is whatever you get to do with your day. And a lot of times we think that the only level of success is money. But I'd rather have health than money. Yes, I would want some money, but money without health is not a good thing. And so we need to change the way we value money and learn to value family, learn to value giving, learn to gather, learn to respect, and learn to understand that sometimes money is a distraction more than it is a positive. So people focus on money and search for money and run towards money, and they are not true to their purpose. And because they're not true to their purpose and what they were born to do, they miss happiness, or they do not get the full benefits of happiness. And so, like I said, and like you answered, money, yes, it's good, but in comparison to family and health, it's a pale third.
That's right.
In my opinion.
I concur with that. So his name is Dr. Siegfried Howell. He is a certified life coach, and certainly he wants to remind you, know your purpose, get to know your purpose, choose your friends wisely, create and share your value, be prepared to practice emotional fitness, which is something a lot of people struggle with, but you can work on it and work towards all of these wonderful things as you reach that stage of knowing that you're happy and being successful. And being successful does not mean that you have to have the millions of dollars to measure your success, but just being content and knowing that other people themselves are also reaching their success it's a shared environment in which we live, brings that happiness that we're talking about. Dr. Howell, thank you so much for joining us this morning and sharing with us your insight from your own experiences and your studies as well. And certainly I hope that many people watching today can now begin to employ those techniques and be able to report that they've reached their level of happiness knowing their purpose. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. We're going to take a break here on Morning Barbados. We're coming back in just a moment.
Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you. Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
It's 7 o'clock. The news now is brought to you by the Barbados Lotteries. Dream car, dream house, dream vacation. They could all be yours this Friday in that massive jackpot draw of $6,950,000. $6,950,000. Did I say it? $6,950,000 in the Super Lotto jackpot. We encourage you to get your tickets today now from any Barbados Lottery outlet island-wide, and you could be living your dream as a Super Lotto millionaire, but you've got to be in it to win it.
Studied hard at school, didn't wanna be a fool, but you're still not in the game. Girlfriend living large, big house and car, that's because she's in the game. Life seems real tough, bills keep going up, and you're still not in the game. It's not that hard for all that to change, it's time to get in the game. You have to be in it to win it, Super Lotto. In it to win it, Super Lotto. In it to win it, Super Lotto. You have to be in the game.
In the news now, the complaints of junior doctors at the Queen Elizabeth Hospital have been heard. They met yesterday with the management in what has been termed as a productive meeting. Minister of State in the Ministry of Health with responsibility for the hospital, Dr. Sonia Brown, explained though the situation of long shifts is not ideal, it's commonplace worldwide owing to staffing shortages. Dr. Brown says her ministry sympathizes with the junior doctors and explains that action is being taken to ease their burden.
The burden came to the hospital, NCDs increased, people were delayed on cancer treatment, so they came in. The medical department is overwhelmed. But what I can tell you is after several meetings, we have asked for and were granted posts to increase the complement of the staffing. We've asked for cover in the A&E for over a certain period so that nobody will be overworked there. And that also adds to how quickly the patient is put on the ward.
Dr. Brown notes complaints by junior doctors were not made to the Barbados Association of Medical Practitioners. However, the ministry continued to make improvements on their behalf. The minister confirms more junior doctors will be joining the complement at the hospital in the near future to alleviate the pressures experienced by staff and members of the public.
We've been working to address some of the issues, and I know that we have people overseas that are studying, that are due to come back over the next few months, for instance, and we're looking into a lot in terms of training overseas so that we can build the complement. And that applies to nurses too. We have several training programs for nurses that some of them are actually in programs, some of them were released recently. Well, you know about the bringing in of the foreign nurses because we are short. So things are being put in place.
Some residents of the housing units in the constituency of St. Michael Southeast are to be relocated. Minister of Housing, Lands and Maintenance, Dwight Sutherland, made that announcement during a Barbados Labour Party branch meeting in the constituency. He further said the government continues its efforts to upgrade the electrical and sewage systems for hundreds of units. To date, electrical upgrades have been completed in 1,872 units out of the 2,687 at a cost of $5 million, while 340 sewage systems have been repaired. Mr. Sutherland says with this work done, government is moving ahead with plans to transfer ownership to tenants and its 20-year free transfer of units initiative.
We have some 3,075 occupants that are qualified under the 20-year free transfer unit program by this government, and this government will carry on that legacy of transferring. And some of the major issues hindering the transfer is the structural integrity of the unit. Some of the units built in 1949 don't have ring beams, so we're assessing these units, and you'll find, because you're the oldest estate, we don't want to come and do an electrical upgrade on a unit that we don't think is satisfactory. It don't make sense.
For those units deemed unfit, Mr. Sutherland said the tenants will be relocated to Lower Burney, where government has acquired 40 acres of land. Later today, the minister is expected to move a resolution in Parliament to vest half of that land in the National Housing Corporation and the other half in Hope Inc. Over 350 homes will be constructed on the plot, half of which will be used to address the challenges in the Pine and nearby areas.
We don't feel comfortable transferring those units to you because it won't be fair to you transferring these units and the ring beams and things, and we can't get them fixed, so we can move you out. Some, not all, but we are doing repairs to most of them. And the DPM and the social survey will determine how many persons move and how many persons will get access to right to own, so that you...
Government will be moving to rectify issues at the St. Matthias Magistrates Court complex. Attorney General Dale Marshall, after touring the complex with Chief Justice from Patterson-Cheltenham, Deputy Permanent Secretary Anthony Wiltshire, Acting Registrar Sharon Dean, a team from the Office of the Attorney General, and Industrial Hygienist Ian Weeks, assured 100% energy in the rectifying of the issues.
We're at St. Matthias Court complex now, which houses aspects of District A, but also the District C Court. We've received some complaints from members of the staff that there are some pressing environmental challenges in this facility that have the potential of simply preventing them from working at all, if not from doing their best. So we've come to see it for ourselves. I am satisfied that there are a number of things that can be resolved in the very, very short term. There are some things that will take a little bit longer, but I'm confident that we can resolve the issues that have been raised to the satisfaction of the staff. But of course, this is a public facility, so any issue that affects the staff here will also have the potential to affect the public.
Mr. Marshall said that while the court was still relatively new, there are environmental challenges across his ministry.
We are having challenges at many of our installations, our police stations, or even our Supreme Court, which is a building that isn't 20 years old yet. Even there we've been having challenges in the nature of mold and so on. There are some solutions that I'm informed, are easily resolved. But you know, there are some simple things that present challenges. One body like the room cold, next body don't want it so cold, so somebody opens the window, which then creates problems which cause mold. So we are going to have to ask for the cooperation of the staff. In many of the rooms I have noticed that while the AC was on, that louvers are also open.
Chief Justice for Patterson-Cheltenham stressed the need to be in a healthy and productive environment.
I am very concerned because many of these complaints feed their way back up to the Office of the Chief Justice. And I'm always concerned about health and productivity. You can get no productivity unless people are in a healthy environment. And that's why, coming out of our usual meeting that the Attorney General and I have on a consistent basis, we decided this morning whatever else we may have on our agenda would have to be deferred. We were going to come on location, and as he correctly pointed out, this is the first of 2 visits we will be making this morning. Staff must see us. We must get their account. I don't want anything that is filtered or massaged.
That's our news until now. More news here on TV8 coming up at 12 noon on the CBC News Day. The CBC News at 7 was brought to you by the Barbados Lotteries. Mornin Barbados continues.
Morning, morning, good morning, good morning to you. Morning, 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 good morning to you.
10 minutes after 7 o'clock, don't forget, still to come, when the orchestra does its own thing, took the conductor completely by surprise. And why? Why did that happen? How did it happen? What was the conductor's response? You shall see today. So stick around to hear more about that in just a little while. Also today, I want to remind you of our Easter bonnet competition that is on. You get a chance to win $250,000 plus. And of course, we want to encourage you all week long to be sending in your photographs or your videos to our Easter bonnet competition here at Mornin Barbados. So get creative, get snapping, get shooting, get it all in. Our Easter bonnet competition, and good luck to all of you. Remember, you have until the 31st of the month to get your entries in. Then we'll start to vote from next week, the 3rd until the 8th or 9th. And then we'll know for sure who our winner of the Easter bonnet competition is. So get going, get going. It's open to all ages. You don't have to be a tiny tot, you can be an adult. So get creative and crafty in getting it done indeed, and we encourage you to continue to do so. And good luck to all of you. Still to come as well, we'll be taking a look at when we have those pets in the house, what dangers could possibly be we're harboring right there indeed. And our pediatrician, Dr. Gillian Birchwood, will join us in just a moment to take a look at that, the dangers of pets and children. Could it be allergies? Could it be something else? What are the dangers that could arise? We'll also be having our conversations on CARICOM, and we'll be getting to meet this morning the new ambassador to Barbados from Cuba, and we'll get to meet her. We get to know a little bit more about what's been happening, that relationship between ourselves, Barbados and Cuba, and how else can we begin to strengthen that relationship indeed. Are we ready? It's now 12 minutes after 7 o'clock, and in just a little while, I'll get to hear a little bit more about how we can all coexist harmoniously. From a man whose name simply means he fights for what he believes. And there he is. Hello to you, Ajamu Crosby. Good morning.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Hi, how are you?
I'm well today. Thank you so much for joining us. How do you do?
I'm fine. Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about who you are, Ajamu Crosby.
Well, I am a young man from Trinidad and Tobago that resides in the Beaton Gardens, which is like, has a stigma of being a bad community with violence, negativity, things like that. And I am someone that wanted to break the mold of that community, so I went on, I won a national scholarship via the CAPE exams. I went on to become a mechanical engineer. And because of that, I said, you know what, let me tell my story. So I authored a book. The name of it is Jams Effect, which tells my story of my journey, the mindsets I would have had to adopt in order to, come out of that mental trap in my community and break the mold and show the youths and the people in communities just like mine that no matter where you come from, you can achieve great things. You can do things bigger than your community. You can look beyond the stigmas and sort of change the narrative of what a person from your set community can represent.
The book is called Jams Effect. What does that mean? Why did you call the book Jams Effect?
So my name is Ajamu, and my nickname is really, people call me Jams, so I wanted to kind of, tie that in with being like a movement, like Jams Effect, the effect I will have on others that I impact, that I meet, that want to achieve the same thing, kind of making it hopefully like a ripple effect on others wanting to achieve despite where they come from.
Now, your name means he fights for what he wants. It seems as if your parents knew you and understood just who you were born into the space in which you were born. And so you've been able to fight your way through to achieve who you are and what you are today. And so in your book, you think there are some life lessons that one can learn about how one navigates oneself through the cosmos. Talk to me about the lessons that you share in the book.
One of the important lessons I speak about is hard work, I have a quote that says, if you work hard enough, long enough, you'll get there. So just be consistent. Put your mind to what you want to achieve, and it will play out how you hope. I also speak about a concept called flow, which is kind of, like every day. If you have a goal, every day doing something towards the goal. If you like fitness, if you like being in the gym, every day go to the gym. Like in my instance and writing my book, It didn't matter how I felt. Every day I wrote something, whether it was 2 words or 2 pages. I contributed to my book, and that's what I speak about when I speak about flow. Kind of taking the chaos out of achieving a goal, making it second nature, making it part of your everyday routine, and just seamlessly sailing towards that goal.
Indeed. You said the book has 3 main acts. Them Boy, which speaks about your upbringing, your beginnings. Then you move on to Be Them Boy. And what does that particular act talk about?
That middle act speaks about a part in my life where I, coming from a poor upbringing, going to secondary school and seeing others having, the latest brands and the latest this. They have, the cell phones, things I didn't have. So I wanted what they had. So I wanted to be them without knowing what it took to get the things that they had. So that speaks on a kind of mental battle with myself and accepting my current situation and not wanting things that were not yet in my time. So it kind of, sometimes you will want things and see others have things and you'll be like, why not me? So that act really goes through my emotional and, my mental state, and really accepting the fact that I will have to work for those things one day, but not right now. I mean, I have it right now, but one day it will be mine.
And it perhaps is such a typical moment in time for most adolescents. You just want to be like.
Yeah.
And so there's this urge to wanting to group, to pair up with, and those kinds of things as you seek to assert yourself. But you're saying in all of that, you learned that you had to now strive a little bit differently to be able to, as the third act says, to beat them, boy. And so talk me through the third act now when you talked about beat them, boy.
Yeah, that act really is the culmination of all the trials and tribulation before. So that really speaks about my competitive drive and desire. So going into a prestigious school for Form 6 and not having the resources that others around me had, I said no matter what, I will still beat the odds. Them being the odds, them being the social limiting factors, them being my environment, I will beat it all and achieve what I want to achieve, which was eventually winning that national scholarship.
And so you've done all of that, you beat them, but you had to come back to beat them, where you were born, where you grew up, where you live. And so how did they receive you once you've done all of that and achieved what you wanted to achieve and now come back home? How did the people back home receive you?
Well, actually, I never left. I've always been here. I've always been part of the community. I've always, been connected to the community, been around. Everyone is so, paying the community and mapping a sense for positivity, because so often in the news it would have been for negative things and bad things and violence, but just having us being able to shed a positive light on the community, showing that, showing the others in the community that we can be represented in this way too. It's not just one mentality or one perception. We can change how people view us and then how we view ourselves.
So how is the JAMS effect at work in your community? How are you using this book? How are you using your story to make the change you want to see?
It starts off, I always say it starts off with the youths, we're giving back, teaching them, educating them, showing them the better way. For example, like I, for a number of years, teach maths and English. I'm very proficient at those 2 subjects, so I give free lessons. I teach maths and English to the younger ones that will be doing. I don't know if you guys have SEA, but so I teach, I mentor, I educate, and I motivate.
And so with this, you've been making some school tours, you've been going about the place and having talks and so forth. Talk to me about how that started and what you've noticed over those tours that you've been making.
Well, that was amazing, like just going into schools and, seeing these young faces with so much they want to achieve and, with so much energy and passion, just being able to, to give them some life tips and advice, knowing that those are things that I would have loved to have when I was coming up, so just being able to impact the now generation and the next generation and really motivate them and, help them to embark on their pioneer journey towards success. That's the best part about it.
And so the book is called JAMS Effect. And where can people get a copy of the book?
Well, as you guys are in Barbados, it's available on Amazon in both Kindle format and paperback, and it's also available here in Trinidad. Nigel Khan's bookstores. So yeah.
All right. So good to meet you today. Ajamu Crosby, his name means he fights for what he wants. He has fought his way through, and now he's a success. And through his success, he's written the book Jam's Effect to share his techniques with others who are finding themselves having been born in a place and not wanting to be defined by that place, but to beat them indeed. And so he has been able to beat the odds thus far, and we want to encourage you, Ajamu, to continue beating the odds to be the success you were designed to be. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you all for having me.
You're very welcome. Ajamu Crosby from Trinidad and Tobago. The book is called Jam's Effect, and you can find it on Amazon. We're going to take a break right here. When we come back, we're talking and having our conversations on CARICOM. Stay with us.
Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
23 minutes after 7 o'clock now, time for us to have our conversations on CARICOM. And again, we're happy to be joined by Barbados Ambassador to CARICOM, His Excellency David Comishong. And he brings with him the Cuba's new Ambassador to Barbados, Her Excellency Janet Stable Cardenas. Good morning to both of you.
Good morning, Pearson.
Ambassador, indeed. Ambassador, I'll start with you. This relationship that Barbados has with Cuba goes back decades, and it's one that has been growing and deepening for a little while. And now here we are. We would have just had Pastrana, the last ambassador, and here we are. We have a new ambassador. Talk to me a little bit about what it means now and the kinds of relationship we need to forge further with Cuba, with the new ambassador.
Yeah. Well, yes, we really want to. We want to welcome her. My colleague, Her Excellency Janet Stable Cardenas. She is the second female Cuban ambassador we have had here in Barbados, following Lisette Perez.
Mm-hmm.
From the point of view of Barbados, the relationship with Cuba is a very, very special relationship. In fact, I would say from the point of view of CARICOM, it's a very special relationship. Every CARICOM, independent CARICOM country has an embassy in Cuba. And Cuba likewise has an embassy in every single independent CARICOM country. That doesn't obtain with any other country anywhere in the world. So this is a special relationship. And I always tell people that the people of Barbados and the people of Cuba share a lot in common, particularly when you're talking about our value system. We are a people, both of us, both Cubans and Barbadians, that really have a sense of the value and sacredness of human beings. That So we take it as a matter of fundamental policy. Every person in our society must have proper access to education, health care, housing, etc. And that's the kind of value system that binds us together. And we shouldn't take it for granted, because in many countries, that value system does not really exist. So we embrace our Cuban brothers and sisters, and we are very happy to have Janet here. She replaces Sergio Pastrana, who the Barbadian people got to know very well.
Yes.
And we want the Barbadian people to get to know Janet just as much.
Ambassador Stabile Cardenas, good morning. Welcome to Barbados.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. Thank you.
You would have heard Ambassador Camachon speak to the relationship that we've had with Cuba over decades, and we want to continue having that relationship. But you came to Barbados, you brought the football team from Cuba, and you beat us. What a way to start.
That's true. That's true, but we still have brothers.
Yes,
and that game was as part of the CONCACAF Nations League. So, but I think it's an expression of what we can do in the future to have sport events between Barbados and Cuba. And we think that sport is one of the areas that we can increase the relationships, increase the exchange. And that is very good for both people.
I know coming out of recent talks at CARICOM, we're looking at other ways to deepen that relationship between CARICOM and Cuba, Barbados and Cuba. How else do you see, while you serve as the Cuban ambassador to Barbados, how else do you see that we can further deepen that relationship?
Well, I think we will continue the working that has been done by the former ambassador Pastrana. And as a result of the last visit of our president, Miguel Diaz-Canel, to Barbados to have a bilateral visit, an official bilateral visit, and to participate in the 80 CARICOM Cuba Summit, they have very good meetings, very good, and they took very good agreements among both governments regarding to increase and to make better the relationships between our people and our governments. In that terms, I think we can mention the potential that we have in the relationships regarding to health, education, cultural exchange, sports, agriculture, trade, building restoration and heritage preservation, mitigation of disaster risks. So we have many areas where we can work together to get benefits from both sides.
For sure, you know you have the support of the nations of CARICOM in the fight that Cuba has to lift the embargo that's placed on you. How else do you see yourself broadening the awareness across the Caribbean and the work that you do here in Barbados so that we forge even that closer relationship with the peoples of Cuba?
So we have to thank deeply to the people of Barbados to support us in this struggle. It has been a struggle for more than 60 years, since the 1960, that was imposed that blockade, that criminal policy against the people of Cuba. But we thanks to the people in Barbados to support us in the multilateral sphere, the multilateral space, and in bilateral relation to regarding to demand the content, the lift of the embargo, the lift of the blockade, because it's the genocide policy against the people of Cuba. And at the same time, we thanks to the people of Barbados to support us in the demand and the condemn of the inclusion of Cuba in the list of the states sponsor of terrorism that the government of the United States have been imposed to some of countries in the world. But in the case of Cuba, we have been in that list is something that we want to thank the support of people in Barbados and in the rest of the world in demanding on that kind of injustice imposition to Cuba.
There's a visit now to Barbados from a delegation from the Cuba's Institute of Friendship with the Peoples of the World. What's the purpose of that visit?
So we have received the visit of two members of the Cuban Institute for Friendship with People. Their names are Lidia Zamora, she's the director of the Latin America and Caribbean Division in the ICAP, and Tamara Armenteros, who is in charge of the English Caribbean countries in that division. They are making a tour through Caribbean countries, and we had the pleasure to receive them here. And we have been the supporter of the Association of Friendship Barbados Cuba that organized the program here in Barbados. Especially, we have to thank to David Dennis, that is the president of this association. And the delegation had the opportunity to meet with some personalities, political, cultural, and social personalities here in Barbados, such as the member of the Barbadian Parliament, Prescott, Mr. Prescott, and the ambassador of Barbados to CARICOM, Mr. Commission. Members, they also met with members of the Solidarity Movement and with the Cuban collaborators in sports, and of course with the member of the Medical Brigade here. We had the opportunity to visit the monument in memory of those who lost their life in the terrorist actions against the Cuban aircraft flight on October 6th of 1976. The CAP delegation also promote the Caribbean meeting of solidarity with Cuba that will be held in Santiago de Cuba from July 23rd to 26th of 2023 in the framework of the 70th anniversary of the assault of the Moncada and Carlos Manuel de barracks. This event will be a tribute to the legacy of the Commander-in-Chief, Fidel Castro.
Ambassador Commission, what I'm sensing coming already is that there is a warmth from this new ambassador of Cuba to Barbados indeed, and that connection will be one that is absolutely rewarding and refreshing as well. And so in welcoming her, I know you're going to be visiting shortly the monument and so forth. What else do you think that we will be exposing the new ambassador Janet to, so that she gets a full sense and a good footing into who we are and what we are?
Well, she's being very modest because she really hit the ground running from the time she arrived here. She's already done quite a bit of work. We have, coming out of the Cuba Barbados conference in December of last year, we have a very ambitious cooperation program. And she has already been organizing meetings. We have had meetings, virtual meetings, between personnel here in Barbados and personnel in Cuba. We are already beginning to put a number of those initiatives into effect. In fact, she may not even be aware, but the very last thing I did before leaving the office yesterday evening was to send her an email outlining the members of the Barbados side of the joint Barbados-Cuba task force to implement all of the cooperation initiatives. So we are setting up. We are in the process of setting up the task force. I will lead the Barbados side of the task force. But even as we go about setting up the task force, we have already started to do things to actually implement. And I want to say to Barbadians that Barbados and Cuba are really deepening this relationship. We are going to be encouraging young Barbadian artists to go to Cuba to experience all that Cuba has to offer in terms of training, in collaboration. We are going to be emphasizing tourism linkages between Barbados and Cuba. Right now, we have a direct flight. Caribbean Airlines has a direct flight out of Trinidad to Cuba. Very soon, there will be a second direct flight out of St. Vincent to Cuba. So we really want to encourage all of the possible people-to-people linkages, student groups going to Cuba, experiencing Cuba. I keep telling the story that 20 years ago, I was involved in arranging for a group of 65 young Barbadian musicians from the Barbados National Youth Orchestra to go to Cuba to spend a month at Cuba's National School of Music, practicing their instruments with top-class Cuban musicians. And I mean, their standard of playing just exploded. And today, a number of the outstanding professional musicians of Barbados today, guys and ladies in their mid-30s, are persons from that group 20 years ago. You know, we're talking about people like Kevin Lynch of the Royal Barbados Police Band, you know, Jomo Slusher, some of the top guys, right? So there's so much that on both sides we can gain from this relationship. And Barbadians need to stay tuned. They're going to hear a lot more from both myself and Ambassador Yanet about the many initiatives that are coming to the fore now.
Ambassador Kamashog, I want to thank you so very much for joining us. We have some pictures we want to share of some of those moments that you've had already. And there we are. And could you explain for us, Ambassador Kamashog?
That's at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So that's the group, the two ladies from ECAP, Institute for Friendship Peoples, David Denny, well known to Barbadians, and the ambassador. That's them at the, of course, at the Cubana Monument. Any group of Cubans that come to Barbados, it is obligatory. They feel the need to visit the Cubana Monument. That's them with many of the nurses. You know, there are many Cuban nurses still serving us here in Barbados, and we are forever grateful for the service that the Cuban nurses provided for us during COVID. That's them, of course. That was a special reception at the Cuban embassy on Saturday, and that's them with Senator John King.
Wonderful.
One family.
One
love.
Family indeed. Ambassador Stabler Cardenas, now you understand the warmth we feel for the peoples of Cuba, and we're going to extend the very same to you while you serve as Cuba's ambassador to Barbados. We welcome you to our home, and we hope that you feel at home with us as we do feel at home with Cubans. We thank you for the service that you continue to offer in that relationship, and we look forward to having more interactions with you in our conversations on CARICOM as well. Welcome again to Barbados.
Thank you so much again, and I feel like a home. Thank you.
You're very welcome indeed. And to you, Ambassador Kamashon, thank you so much again for joining us this morning and bringing her along. And I'm sure that we will have more interactions with her as time goes by. Thank you so much.
Oh, definitely.
Indeed.
Thank you, Chris. Pleasure.
You're very welcome indeed. We've been having our conversation on CARICOM this morning with Barbados Ambassador to Commission, His Excellency David Commission. We also got a chance to meet this morning Her Excellency Janet Stabler Cardenas, who is Cuba's Ambassador to Barbados, newly installed. And certainly now you know her face, now you know her voice, now you understand better her mission. We will continue to give them our support as our brothers and sisters in Cuba like us would need that help. So we'll take a break here. We're coming back to talk with Dr. Julian Birchwood right after.
Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
Books open your heart, your mind, and your soul. They are educational, entertaining, inspiring, and motivating. Are you an author of a recent book you want to share? Then Mornin Barbados would love to feature your book in our The Next Chapter segment. Send us an email to morninbarbados@cbc.bb. That's morning without the G. Come and let us turn those pages together.
Because you love English Premier League, MCTV has got it back. Now you can watch all the games of the English Premier League plus UEFA and NFL on MCTV. Current customers can upgrade to Max Pack Extra at just $23. Call MCTV today at 228-6288 to upgrade or come in and sign up for our new service. Football fans, let MCTV get you back in the game.
Hi, I am Jaheem Thomas, one of the team leaders of Project SOF. Project SOF is a very transformational program for youth who are now going into secondary school. It helps them with their team building, effective communication, decision making, and also raise awareness of drug use. For me, Project SOF definitely impacted my life, especially as a team leader. Dealing with children every day, it was for me to honestly wonder, am I making the right decisions when I approach these children? And not only that, but are they developing as well and taking in information that they're being taught? Project SOF also benefits those children, as I mentioned earlier. But one of the major things I have seen, especially from children coming out of Project SOF, is the impact that it has made on them even after the program. Recently, I went to one of these schools where I saw some of these students. And when they came to me, the effect, the impact that I got, because they said, Uncle Jaheem, and to see that relationship still sticks with them, to see that they still remember everything.
So we're 18 minutes now to go to the hour of 8 o'clock as we turn our attention to having that conversation too with Dr. Gillian Birchwood, the world's greatest pediatrician ever. Good morning to Dr. Birchwood. Dr. Gillian Birchwood, we wanted to today. There she is. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm going to hire you as my PR consultant.
You should. You really should. I will do the job because I'll only tell the truth. Indeed. Now, here it is. Oh, by the way, I want to talk a little bit. Start by last week when we looked at World Down Syndrome Day. Michael had such a day. He was a star at his school, indeed. And I'm so glad that we had conversations opening up about Down syndrome and the like. And just last weekend as well, I encountered a parent who, as a consequence of us talking about it, she introduced her daughter to me as well. It was really lovely.
Oh, that's lovely. That's really lovely. They're such lovely and wonderful children.
Yeah,
they really are.
Truly are indeed. But as nice and fuzzy as those children are, there's some nice and fuzzy little pets that we have as well, whether it be the cat, the dog, the turtle, the whatever. And sometimes that does not necessarily mean that they necessarily should be in the house. So let's talk about some of the dangers where that's concerned.
Whenever we're thinking about pets, we think about all the benefits of pets, and there definitely are lots of benefits about pets. But there's also the flip side to it, and doctors and healthcare professionals would certainly have seen some of the flip side of having pets, that it can sometimes actually be harmful for children to have certain pets. And I would want parents and caregivers to be aware that there can be some problems you can encounter of various types, depending on the type of pet that you have and the nature of the interaction that your children have with those pets, be it the cat or dog, or the backyard poultry, otherwise known as yard fowl, or the or the hamsters or gerbils, or the pet birds that we have around. I think it's important for parents to be aware there can be the downside of having pets.
Now, we can obviously we're going to go quickly. If the bite, the scratch, we get all of that. But there's some other things that could create dangers for our children as well. Whether the child is allergic to something about the cat or the dog or the yard fowl, whatever the case may be. So let's talk through some of those things that you often see happen that we did not know or we took for granted.
Yes. So definitely the hair or the saliva or the skin cells that shed from the pets can trigger allergies. And children, especially when they're interacting with pets, for example, like dogs, the dog will be all up in their face sometimes. licking them in their face, which I really discourage parents from allowing because that can transmit diseases. But also the dander and the saliva, when it dries, it can trigger allergies in some people. And those allergies can be quite intense, especially if the dog or the cat or the pet actually lives inside. So, all those pet hairs that you can find lying around the bed or the couch, it's really important to know those can trigger quite a strong allergic reaction. And you may have a child who has that chronic congested stuffy nose, they're sneezing all the time and clearing their throat, or they may have eye allergies. And in some cases, it can actually be a trigger for wheezing in children who are asthmatic. So definitely pets can trigger allergic reactions and asthmatic attacks. And parents need to be vigilant and make sure that if the pet is inside, that they are really, really careful about clearing up any dander or anything related to the pet around the child.
And you're quite right, the boys had a cat. This cat was shed. It's I'm telling you. But you're quite right. And it gets into spaces and places that you're thinking, oh my goodness, just put the cat outside, those kinds of things. But even in that, there's some animals that will go to foraging. At some point, the cat is going to go outside. It wants to go out and hunt, so to speak. But then it comes right back in with its prey, its find. And that in itself is also quite dangerous as well.
Yes. So, when you're a cat, because cats are really, they're supposed to be domesticated, but they really aren't as domesticated as we think. It's their natural instinct to go out and go hunting. Sometimes they'll bring back some of their trophies to show off to their owners, unfortunately, and they'll get in the house with the dead, whatever it is. And so if you have babies and toddlers and children around the house, you don't want them handling those yucky little trophies that they might bring back in, because that can definitely pose quite a threat. It can make the child sick, give them gastro-like illnesses and diarrhea. But even with cats, if there's a litter box, if the children are handling the litter box, there are diseases that cats can give to people and pregnant women. For example, one that is called toxoplasmosis, which is transmitted by cat feces. It can cause illnesses in unborn children, so pregnant women should never handle cat litter boxes. And it can also cause illness in children who are handling that litter box. So you want to make sure you supervise that process, and you don't want them to become infected with toxoplasmosis, which can cause quite significant illness in vulnerable populations of children.
Wow, now that was an eye-opener. You should have seen my face when you just said it. My eyes popped. Did not know that at all, but now we know. The other thing too is, as pets would go, pets like humans would need to eliminate, if you follow me.
Yes.
And sometimes the children, depending on their age, in their curiosity, go to play with the elimination. And so that in itself can be a problem, couldn't it?
Yes. So we just mentioned about the elimination of cats. Cat poop basically really can cause a problem. But, for dogs as well, dogs will be outside. They shouldn't be doing that inside, but sometimes that does happen. And so when it's outside and children running around playing, or they're just curious and picking up and handling it, parasites can be present in the dog feces. And we definitely don't want children ingesting it. And I could fill your ears with horror stories about these things, because children are curious and they don't know about these rules. So be very careful that you never leave your child unsupervised around pets, because then you want to make sure that they don't get in direct contact, for example, with their feces. And it's really important that they avoid that, because definitely that can be a big transmission of illness, big source of transmission of illness in the child.
And that's a good rule. Never leave your child unsupervised around pets, full stop. And so, but there are also other dangers. Children in their innocence and their love for the pet, because they feel this love coming back at them, sometimes forget that this pet, whether it be the dog, for instance, its instincts are different from ours. And so while you might want to play with the mouth and the dog gets annoyed, it might snap at you and bite you. So the teaching of those kinds of things.
Yes, absolutely correct. So, pets are animals and they don't follow the same rules that we do. And no matter how gentle that pet may seem, don't underestimate the potential for the pet to snap at, a child, for example, especially when children are doing things that are inappropriate, like the dog is eating in the corner and they go to play with the dog food while the dog is eating it. That dog is not going to appreciate that, and the natural instinct will be to protect their food. It doesn't happen with all animals, but you don't want to have a situation where your child would be at risk of getting snapped at. If the dog is sick or the cat is sick, for example, and they feel unwell, their behavior may change. And so your normally gentle pet may behave quite differently. So it's really important to be aware of that. So I've certainly seen bites and scratches from children inappropriately handling pets, trying to ride the family dog, pulling the tail of the cat, none of which is appreciated by many of the pets. So you have to teach your children how to behave around the pets, or you might have an unexpected injury.
You're quite right on that one, indeed, because I mean, we've all ridden the dog at some point in time, and then you realize it's saying, no, get off of me. And so to be able to teach your children the limits to which they can go with those pets is so very, very, very critical indeed. But then there's some people who have the habit of having and they have these little pigs that they call pets, but the pigs sleep in the bed. And you know, I wonder sometimes, you know, how do you get to that point? And don't you realize that a pig in itself has its own germs?
Yes. And so, you know, pot-bellied pigs are becoming all the rage for pets in Barbados. I definitely have a number of patients who have pot-bellied pigs, and they're really, really cute, and they are very much part of the family. And sometimes, yes, they'll be curling up with the children or the family members, but just like any other pet, they can carry diseases. Definitely they can have parasites, they can have in their feces bacteria which can cause diarrheal illnesses. So you want to teach your child, you know, you handle the pet, wash your hands. Or perhaps being in bed and sleeping with the pet is not the very best idea. It's very cozy, sounds nice, but can definitely lead to illnesses. And then there are other pets like reptiles, for example, which is snakes. I have no idea why anybody would want one, but anyway, some people like them. Snakes and lizards and turtles, they can carry salmonella, well known for carrying salmonella.
Wow.
And so again, you need to encourage your child to wash their hands while they're handling, not to be touching their mouths. And, you know, definitely younger children are guilty of putting their hands in their mouth. They touch everything, then they put their hands in their mouth. You don't want them getting that salmonella with the vomiting and the diarrhea and the tummy pain and the fever. So you have to be really careful, for example, around reptiles in particular.
Oh, Dr. Birchall, you shared so much with us this morning indeed. Let's not take our pets for granted, but assuming that they're all necessarily clean. You know, there are some things that could happen, and remember that sometimes you don't even know it until it actually happens that your child has an allergic reaction. So know your child, know the pet, know your home environment, know all of those kinds of things. Model the behavior that you would want from your children as well, and keep a very close eye on that interaction, child and pet. Indeed, it's absolutely important indeed. Dr. Birchall, thank you so much for joining us today. We look forward to seeing you again next week.
It was a pleasure to be here. Have a great week, Pearson.
As always, thank you so much. You do too. You do too. Dr. Gillian Birchwood, our pediatrician, with us this morning again. The dangers that can occur when the child is in love with a pet, and you too. And so what you expose your child to, you need to pay greater attention to. Indeed, because it could spell something really disastrous for your child. We'll take a break here. We're coming back with more in just a moment.
Hi, I am.
My production crew is crazy. Say, go, Pearson. All right, here we go. 5 minutes to go till 8 o'clock. And remember, still to come, a look into that reaction of the conductor when the orchestra did its own thing. But let's remind you of a few things that we'd love you to pay closer attention to, like Easter is around the corner and our Mornin Barbados Easter bonnet competition. Take a look.
This Easter, CBC is having an Easter bonnet decorating competition where anybody, old or young, can participate. All you need is a bonnet or a hat for those who don't know, some glitter, some Easter eggs, some flowers, maybe even some chocolate. Take a photo of your finished product and send to morninbarbados@cbc.bb or WhatsApp 467-5465 from March the 27th to March the 31st. All entries will be shown on Mornin Barbados and posted to their social media page. The photo with the most likes can win $250. Oh yeah, and if you win, you can be featured on their TV morning talk show Mornin Barbados. Sponsored by Superstyle Shoe Shop, keeping your steps in style. Skate Life Barbados, Skate Life, Great Life, and Mornin Barbados.
So as we say, get cracking, get that egg cracking, get cracking, folks. Get your Easter bonnet together and get them in. Remember, you can take a photograph and you can send it by email or video. Send it by email to morninbarbados@cbc.bb or you can send it by WhatsApp to 467-5465. Now, today's the 28th and BARP is on the road. Where are they going today? Take a look.
BARP is on the road. That's right. Tuesday, March 28th, the BARP Road Show in association with Seven Seas will be on the road at the Valley Resource Center St. George from 9:30 a.m. to 11 a.m. The Eric Holder Municipal Center in St. Joseph from 12 p.m. to 1:30 p.m. and the Belle Plaine Resource Center St. Andrew from 2:30 p.m. to 3:30 p.m. Become a member, renew your membership, and hear about the benefits of our health insurance plan. Call us at 538-2277. It's the date. Meet BARP on the road Tuesday, March 28th when we come to a community near you. Sponsored by Seven Seas.
Now to this one. Now, what do you do as a member of an orchestra, as a member of any group? You follow the director, you follow the leader. And so this conductor stood before his orchestra, baton in hand, and raised his hand to start, and this happened. Take a look.
Yannick Nizé-Segar.
Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
I'm telling you, I love that. I love that. That's actually something the Barclays singers would do. That's the kind of attitude that we have indeed. Well done. Thank you so much for joining us today, everybody. Hope you brought a smile to your face among everything that's what we shared with you today. Nadia Foster has been my producer. The master control has been Tamisha Green. Our technical director today has been Bon Greenwich, assisted by Rule Ford. Sound has been Christopher Blendman, and our wonderful makeup technician this morning has been Joanna Jones. I'm Pearson Boyne. For each of them, to all of you, thank you. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Barbados, get up. Good morning.